Hello, my name is Clifford, a software developer at Bomahut, and today I'm going to be taking you through the document feature that we have recently introduced at our property management software. Now, the document feature is a feature that we have created so that we can reduce the back and forth that tenants and landlords have with one another regarding creation of documents. So in our application we've created a feature where landlords are able to create a document and they're able to sign the documents and then they're able to forward them to their tenants who are also able to finalize the document by signing. In Kenya, one of the legal ways to actually legitimize a document is where a document is signed by two different parties, even if it is a digital signature. So, for example, in our application, I'm going to be taking you through how we are going to create this document. We're going to send it to the tenant, and we're going to show you even how the tenant can open this document and be able to sign. And finally, you can be able to download the document and save it for accountability purposes and for an audit trail. So, join me as we go through this tutorial. So the first thing we're going to go through, we're going to look for the document feature under settings, and it's going to be under this section called documents better. So when you click on this, you're going to see two different tabs. One is the documents tab and the other one is the templates tab. So in order for you to create a document, you're going to need to create a template first of all. So the first step that you're going to need to do is going to create a template. So for this specific tutorial, I'm going to be showing you by using a template that we have created for our users, which in this case is the list template. In future, we may be able to add a few more documents based on how this feature does. So, for example, you can see in here we have a template description, which says this is a default list document template, and it says the list type is list. You can choose to edit this information later as you please, but for my specific example, I'm going to take you through this process using the list document, using the list template. Sorry. So the next step you can do is by clicking either the next button or the text editor buttons. But I'm going to click on the next button. So when you go to the next button, you go to through this and you're going to see a lot of information that I'm going to break down for you. So the first information you're going to see on the right is the allowed keywords, which are items like date to day, landlord name, landlord phone, tenant name, which all look pretty foreign if you don't understand where they come from. And in the middle, you're going to be seeing this document editor, and you're going to see a few details here that I'm going to explain in a minute. But first of all, we're going to go through this text that says text editor. Use the text editor below to create your custom template. You can use the keywords on the right to insert dynamic content. Use curly brackets or the wiggly brackets to wrap the keyword. For example, to insert property name, you open the curly bracket, property underscore name, and then you close the curly bracket. And with that, you can be able to create a dynamic content. So for example, I am going to clear everything here and we are going to try and be creative with some of these keywords. So for example, I'm going to say my name is, I'm going to open one of the curly brackets and I'm going to type in the word landlord underscore name, which in this case I'm going to close a curly bracket, and we have this preview feature which helps us to see how the tenants are going to be able to view the documents, because they're not going to see my name is landlord name. They're going to see something like my name is Richard Rowe, which is apparently my new name. And you can choose to edit this however you like. You can choose to add the tenant name. You can choose to write my name is tenant underscore name, and I live in property. I am going to say, I'm going to open the curly brackets and insert property underscore name. And then I'm going to say unit, and I'm going to clarify that I am in unit underscore name. For unit underscore name, I am not going to close the curly bracket. and I want you to see what happens when we don't close the curly bracket. So for example, here it's going to say, my name is Jane Doe. I live in property Edenville unit name. So if you do not follow the instructions, it no longer becomes a dynamic content. So you can look at these keywords as variables that we can use, but only within the curly bracket. So for example, if I want to fix this error, I will just add a curly bracket, and now when I preview, I'm able to see that my name is Jendo. I live in property Edenville, unit ED1. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is the essence of all this process? Why do I need to go through all this when I can just type in the tenant name, the landlord name, and all this? Now, you can imagine if you have multiple units, multiple tenants that you are handling, you don't want to go through typing all of their names. So, for example, this template helps you so that you're able to actually just import the names that you've saved in our system and help you create documents easier for yourself. So I'm going to show you an example of using our list template that we have created for our users that already has all the details that we have done, that our team has done a lot of research on and come up with us a standard list template that can be used for a lot of properties. Of course, you can choose to edit as you wish, but this is a good example. So you can see it as a title, and you can see it has stuff like this list agreement is made and entered into on date underscore today by and between. So it kind of saves you time. For example, you don't need to go and search the landlord name for a specific property. If you own multiple properties, you don't need to remind yourself of the phone number, where have I saved this, and you don't need to type tenant name for unit A1, A2, A3, all the way to F8 or whatever number of units you have. So you can just use this as a short form. Now, for example, if I click on preview, I'm able to see the details that we have saved. We have the logo here, we have the property name, we have the landlord name, we have the phone number name, we have all these details that you potentially don't even notice could have been used here. Now, for example, for here I can see a penalty statement that probably is just going to read um, here as yes, penalty underscore statement. So it saves you a lot of time in typing this information. And this is based on the data that you've saved in your system. Now, enough about the template. I think it's just better to learn by doing so. I'm going to show you, we're going to save this template as it is, and then we're going to go back to the documents feature. Now, we're done with creating our template. Now we can go to the document tab, or we can just click the add new document at the top. So when you click on add new document, you can select a template. For example, the template that we have created for you is a list template. We can add more in future, like I've said, but for right now, we're going to use the list template. And then after that, I'm going to click on the next button, and I'm going to select a tenant. Now, for example, here I'm going to select a tenant. I'm going to select this tenant called Cora Legends, who is in this property Food 101 and in the unit C35. Now, after I've selected my tenant, I'm going to go to Save Document, and from there you can see now I've actually imported real and actual data from what I've saved in this account. For example, here is a property name. It's called Zawadi Properties Limited. Of course, you can format it in a proper way. This is just for example purposes. You can see this is the logo I have saved. As a careless developer, I have not created a proper logo, but of course, you can choose your property's logo, and you can see it has imported the landlord name. You can see it has imported the landlord phone number, the tenant phone number, other kinds of information such as the penalty statement, the pay bill that I've set in the property level, the account number, the security deposit is here, and other information. Now, this information is all well and good, but you might say to yourself, this cannot actually be a legal document if both the landlord and the tenant have not signed the document. Now, as you can see here, we already have this landlord signature, which, if you look at the keywords, you will probably see the landlord signature is right here, which is one of the two that is saved here. So how are we going to add this landlord signature before I click on save and send this document to this tenant that we have selected? So one of the ways you can look for this, you can look for this in the account information section. Now for here, I've already created my own signature, but maybe I can just delete it for this purpose. And you can see here that if I go back, you can see by clicking on the signature part and update signature, you can find a way to create the signature now. Now, one of the ways you can do this is by uploading a digital signature that you've saved somewhere, or you can use the signature part that we've created for you here. So for example, I will create this random signature and I'll put a random dot here, just two dots, so that you can be able to clarify that this signature has just been created right now. And after I've been able to save this signature, this now counts as the landlord signature. And now if I go back to the documents and we continue our process again by selecting the template and now selecting the tenant, and finally going to save the document, you can see all the way at the bottom we have the signature, and we have it with these two dots, which I hope you can see from this video. And this is the signature that we've created. So now we have everything that we need in order to create this document. Now we want to send this to the tenant so that they may be able to view, review, and accept this document if they choose to, and also that they may be able to sign from their side. Now, after you click Save and Send Document, as you can see, it says document added successfully. And now if we go back to the documents page, you can see that we've actually created a document for Coral Legends of this property and this unit name. And as of right now, it's a draft because the tenant has not reviewed the document and has not signed the document. So what is the next step? The next step is now not for you, the landlord, but for the tenant. Now, if you had no idea, we have a tenant section in our property management software that your tenants can use. Now, for example, the phone number that I have saved for this specific Coral Agents, which is a random tenant, it's not actually a real account, is sorry, briefly, I need to access the OTP, so that's why I needed to do this, but I'm going to continue. So the tenant can actually type in their phone number or their email, and then we send an OTP, allowing them to be able to access the system. So for example, right now, if I look for the OTP, I can see it is 0956 as received, as they will be able to receive on their phones or devices. So by clicking on this, they are able to log into their portal. And if you look at their portal, you're able to see a lot of details. You can see property contacts of the property that you have, tenancy periods, their balance that is due. For example, this is a good tenant that have paid in advance. And for example, if you see up here at the top, you can see the document that you've created is actually ready for viewing. It says you have one new document to review. Now you can click, the tenant can click on view documents, or they can actually go to the documents tab. But in my case, for this tutorial, I'm going to click on view documents. And when you click on view documents, you can see we have Coral Legends, lease, and the status is draft. It is draft because a document again cannot be finalized unless both parties agree and sign to this document. So now we have actions that we can able to do. Now for the tenant, they can view the the document, they can preview if they want to see it in a different tab. They can see these details. This agreement is made and entered into on the 2nd of sorry, on February 4th, 2026. Of course, you can choose your own date format and all that information. You can see the lease, the unit C35. You can see the details, how to pay the rent. You can see how to input the security deposit. And of course, again, I will clarify, if you want to write your own list template, that is well and okay. But we have created the variables which actually pulls from your actual data to help you so that you don't have to do that for a million tenants. Now, after you'll be able to view all this and the tenant is satisfied with the information that they have seen, as you can see right here, we have a place where they can agree and sign. Now, if I click on agree and sign here, it's actually not accepting, and this is because we don't have a tenant signature yet. Now, if they're able to click on create signature here, we also have a signature pad for the tenants and they can be able to sign. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to put some kind of exclamation mark so that you can distinguish the two. Now, after the tenant has created the signature and exited the signature part, you can see now we have the landlord signature and we have the tenant signature. And now they can be able to agree and sign this document. Now, you have to understand that after you submit this document, we do not allow the landlord or the tenant to edit the document further because that will no longer serve the purposes. Because after both the landlord and the tenant have signed the document, this is now legally binding, and we do not allow either the tenant or the landlord to change any details from here on forward. If you feel like the document is wrong and there's some information, you can choose to delete and create a new document. But we do not allow that this current document to be edited. After you're done, you can submit, and you can see it says the document has been updated successfully. And now you can see the status has changed to final. And this means that right now the only option that the tenant can have right now is to download the document, which you can view here. It is on a different tab, but I can show you in another time. So after the tenant has been able to download this document, I am going to show you something else. Let me see if there's a way I can actually switch tab. Okay, I cannot do that right now, but we're going to switch back to the landlord side and we're going to see if we can actually view um, the document that we've created and whether its status has changed. So if I go back to the document side, right now you can also see Coral Legends, but the difference is that the status has changed from draft to final, because right now as a landlord, you can only download this document. And like I've said, if you feel like the document was missing some key information, you cannot change it anymore because it is now legally binding after both of you have signed. So the only way to deal with that is to delete and create a new one. But for right now, you can either choose to download the document for yourself and review for yourself. Now, that in a short and brief summary is how to use this document feature. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to our sales team who are always available for you to communicate with. Thank you.